Mike Yastrzemski's story is inspiring, and he's the longest tenured Giant. LaMonte Jr. has the 11th highest on-base percentage in baseball, minimum 900 plate appearances since 2023. Are the Giants really looking to trade these guys? Reports say they may be.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, been hosting this show since just prior to the 2019 season, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. So check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. You can start the football season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And where we get started is by discussing a report, not a rumor, a report that the Giants are open to trading. How did I lose this tab? Okay. Report. Giants making Yastrzemski, Wade available in off-season trades. This is the title of a article for NBC Sports Bay Area by Taylor Worth, published yesterday, November 12th. And it's coming from Jeff Passan, who works for ESPN and or writes for ESPN, works for ESPN. And, Passan did a little piece that we're actually going to get into a lot of what he said today, because he also connected the Giants to some notable free agents in this piece. But he talked about trades and mentioned specifically LaMonte Jr. and Mike Yastrzemski. So I'm just going to go directly to the source and quote Jeff Passan, who writes under the subheading of how the trade market could shape the winter. His second to last paragraph says, LaMonte Jr., first baseman, as new president of baseball operations, Buster Posey reimagines the Giants roster. Wade, whose .376 on-base percentage ranks 11th among the 144 players with at least 900 plate appearances over the past 2 years, is available. So is outfielder Mike Yastrzemski, a free agent after the 2025 season. End quote. And so there you have it. Jeff Passan, very, very legit reporter, unlike somebody else who may or may not have said Arson Judge appears headed to Giants a couple years ago, who we'll get into the Juan Soto situation later on. Are they having a meeting? Are they not having a meeting? We'll get into that later on. But just for the record, both Yastrzemski and Wade are free agents after the 2025 season. So they're entering their last year of arbitration eligibility. So they can and will, unless they're extended, hit the open market after the 2025 season. And so that's not why it makes sense to trade these guys, but that it is certainly noteworthy when you're talking about trade possibilities. And so MLB Trade Rumors always makes really good arbitration salary estimates, and Yastrzemski and Wade are entering their last year of ARB eligibility. And for Yaz, the estimate for what he would earn through the arbitration process is $9.5 million for 2025, so just 1 year, $9.5 million, and for Wade it would be 1 year, $4.7 million. Those are the estimates. And so the Giants, there's a deadline coming up in just about a week for when the Giants must decide whether or not to tender contracts. Actually, it's on the 22nd of November, so 9 days from now. The Giants have to, you get to decide whether you can non-tender players and basically just cut them loose and not have to owe them any money at all. But anyway, the point is that what is the exact word that he said is that Wade is available, and then he says so is Mike Yastrzemski, and so this isn't particularly surprising, even though I did a little tease there in the open and said Mike Yastrzemski's story is inspiring to Giants fans, and he's the longest tenured Giant, which is kind of crazy. He is a success story. Even though he hasn't certainly turned into a star player, he is a useful major league player and really an inspiring story, given that he toiled away in the Orioles minor league system after being drafted in 2013, 429th overall. He didn't make his major league debut until he was traded to the Giants, and in 2019 made that debut. So a long time in the Orioles minor league system, debuted at the age of 27, and he entered pro ball at age 21. So yeah, just spent a long time with the Orioles in the minor leagues, never got a chance, even though those Orioles teams were really bad. And the Giants, this is where you give some credit to Farhan Zaidi. It's not like he's a star, but he's a major league player, right? And so they identified that. They acquired him. It was it was the first offseason under Zaidi. And in his career, Yaz has been 12% above average and has, at times been one of the better right fielders in the game and a capable center fielder as well. He is, though, 34 years old, going to turn 35 during the season, and as was mentioned in the piece, he's entering his last year of team control. And for Wade, I pulled up the list because I wanted to double check that. 11th highest on base percentage in baseball over the last 2 seasons. Minimum 900 plate appearances. You want to know the 10 players with a better on-base percentage than LaMonte Wade during that span? Number 1 is Aaron Judge. Number 2 is Juan Soto. Number 3, Ronald Acuna Jr. Then the list goes Shohei Ohtani, Yordan Alvarez, Freddie Freeman, Mookie Betts, Bryce Harper, Christian Yelich, Kyle Tucker. Then it's LaMonte Wade Jr. So it's hard to fake your way onto a list like that. Like, if you are on a list like that, you're doing something right. It is worth noting that the LaMonte Wade Jr. during that span has put up 3.1 Fangraphs wins above replacement. And the 10 players ahead of him in the on-base percentage category over this 2-year span, the next closest player is at 6.8, so more than double, and that's Christian Yelich, more than double what LaMonte Wade Jr. has been able to do. And so that's due to several factors. Number 1, not playing a premium defensive position at first base. If he was like a good defensive outfielder, that would dramatically increase the value of LaMonte Wade. But his knees have kind of forced him into the infield and first base specifically. And also, he's not a great base runner in large part because of his knees. I don't know if it's just one knee or both knees, and he's also not played as much as some of these other top guys due to injury, and also power. He's got the on base percentage thing down, but a lot of these other players have isolated powers in the well into the 200s and some into the 300s, and Wade's is at 143. And so he does one thing exceptionally well, and that's get on base. And that's valuable. And so the point is, I'm kind of explaining who these players are, but the point is that the Giants are apparently making them available in trades. And so this makes sense for 2 reasons. Number 1 is that we had these reports that the Giants are going to cut payroll, which I think got a lot of attention because it's a big attention grabbing type headline, but it also didn't surprise me at all given that they had significantly raised payroll in the last year or two and failed to get results from that. And so it's not surprising that ownership would be like, the results aren't there. We're not going to spend that kind of money to get those results. And according to Andrew Baggerly, don't believe these Forbes articles that come out every year telling you exactly how much profit each team made. This is not public information. And so I don't know how they think they can just publish that as if it's factual is beyond me. But anyway, Baggerly did some digging and did report that the Giants operated at a significant loss in 2024. So anyway, I want to continue this conversation. We broke down who these players are, but the trade aspect, what it would mean, why it would make sense, why it wouldn't make sense, and what I ultimately think they should do, we will get into all of that coming up in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Select Quote, the World Series, the Super Bowl, the Olympics. The world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing, teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. Select Quote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. They can find you the right policy to keep your financial legacy safely in your family's end zone. Other life insurance brokers offer impersonal, one-size-fits-all policies that may cost you more and cover you less, while Select Quote's licensed insurance agents work for you to tailor a life insurance policy for your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedon. Go to selectquote.com/lockedon today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedon. All right, here we go. We're going to get into more about this report from ESPN's Jeff Passan that LaMonte Wade Jr. and Mike Yastrzemski are available in trades. It's far from a specific rumor, right? Like, it would be one thing if it was like, report, Giants are working on a trade that would send LaMonte Wade Jr. to the Tampa Bay Rays in exchange for blah, 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 something like that. And why do I say Tampa Bay Rays? Because that would just, I would not be surprised at all if he were traded, if it was to the Tampa Bay Rays, because, on base percentage, we're way past on base percentage being like cutting edge, but teams value on base percentage, and Wade does it very well. And so why it's significant, why it could make sense, two reasons. Like I said, number one is to potentially reduce payroll that then they could reallocate to something else. So I've been saying this all along, but it's a little bit tricky when you're talking about trying to improve the team, but you also have a bunch of, like, most of your spots already filled, right? Like, if you look at first base, just look at Mike. I've talked about Mike Yastrzemski as a non-tender candidate, not necessarily because he's not worth 1 year, $9.5 million. It's a very reasonable salary for a player who gives you like league average production year in and year out. I get it. He's a flawed player, but the average player is flawed. And so is Mike Yastrzemski. But if you need to improve, which it'll be hard enough to improve. But then if you're also placing a restriction on, forget the financial component even for a second, you just simply need certain spots to be opened for better players to come in. So Mike Yastrzemski may be perfectly serviceable, but your outfield is full with Jung-Hoo Lee set to return. This is a guy they committed $113 million to, and showed a lot of promise. It didn't, the numbers weren't spectacular or anything, but definitely intrigued by Jung-Hoo Lee. And man, actually the 2025 Steamer projections are up, and they're fantastic for Jung-Hoo Lee. 293 batting average, 351 on base, 437 slugging, about 4 wins above replacement. That would be amazing. And he's only 26 years old. So anyway, and then you got Elliot Ramos having his breakout season. There's 2 spots accounted for. And so if you want to improve, if you bring back Mike Yastrzemski and just say, there you go, there's no real significant way to improve. When you've got, whether it's the trade market or the free agent market, there are players who are an upgrade over Mike Yastrzemski. And so you're talking about roughly $10 million that you would commit to him and not improving upon his performance. And so it makes sense to potentially make a trade because you free up the money and you give yourself the opportunity. Say you sign a $20 million player, you're only spending $10 million more and you're upgrading. So, it's worth exploring, certainly. And as for LaMonte Wade, it's a little bit more interesting because Wilmer Flores, Wade and Flores form kind of a natural platoon at first base. And Flores had that player option that he picked up, just $3.5 million. This is chump change to major league teams. So it's not a big deal. Like if they really felt like, oh, there's no place for Flores on this roster, then they could easily just, cut him loose. I do think that he, as a bench player, even that's just a very reasonable salary given the many productive years that he's had. But it makes a lot of sense to have him and Flores kind of platooning at first base. Now it's the same issue though. But it's less about money because of the projected salary. For Wade, again, the projected salary through arbitration is $4.7 million for 2025. And so, Yaz is about double that. And so it's about half as important salary-wise, but it's the same principle applies when we're talking about improving at that position because there are only so many positions. Like I said, if they bring back Yaz, there's nowhere in the outfield where you bring in an everyday player and improve dramatically. If you bring back Wade, then you've got Wade and Flores, and then first base is Wade and Flores, and second base is probably where you're going to put Tyler Fitzgerald. I think shortstop is an area where they will sign a player or trade for one. I think it's probably more likely that they sign a player. I've said this before, I would put money on them signing Ha-Seong Kim or Willy Adames. And then, of course, Matt Chapman's locked up at third base long-term and Patrick Bailey behind the plate. And so where do you improve? I point to right field and I point to first base as areas where you could improve. And if you did go out and sign like a Christian Walker, formerly of the Arizona Diamondbacks, currently a free agent. I mean, he could return to the D-backs. Pete Alonso is out there. I think that's less likely. Christian Walker, I like him quite a bit. Thing is, they don't want to block Bryce Eldridge, who is a 19-year-old uber prospect, and he plays first base. So if you sign a first baseman to a long-term deal, that's why I think like a Yaz trade makes more sense. But at the same time, there is the DH spot as well. And so, if it's not going to be Juan Soto, which at first we were told the Giants were, what did they say? Legit contenders for Juan Soto. And then later we heard something else. So we'll get into that a little bit later, like I said. But yeah, it's something they've got to think about. I think trading Yastrzemski makes more sense just because of the presence of Bryce Eldridge. I like Christian Walker. I like Pete Alonso. There's another first baseman. I mean, I guess Paul Goldschmidt, although he's old and showing signs of very real decline. But Wade and Flores is not a bad first base situation, but you could easily upgrade on Mike Yastrzemski, and the salary's getting up there where it's no longer like a bargain. It's more like, okay, you're getting what you're paying for, and he's up there in age. Like he's not a part of the long term anymore, because at that age you just don't stick in the game much longer. So anyway, certainly makes some sense, and we'll just have to wait it out and see. But there's a lot of free agent outfielders. There's also quite a few, like I said, free agent first basemen. I should really name some of them. So, okay, first, in terms of projections for next year, it's Christian Walker, Pete Alonso, Paul Goldschmidt, Josh Bell. Those are basically the main guys. And then the outfield, you're looking at Juan Soto, Anthony Santander, Teoscar Hernandez, Tyler O'Neill, who gets mentioned in a rumor related to the Giants. Not really a rumor, more of a suggestion. Jurickson Profar had a big season out of nowhere. And I don't know, it's not the deepest list. Those are probably the main guys. Alex Verdugo, kind of similar to Yastrzemski, honestly. Younger, but similar. So there you have it. The rumors make sense. So coming up in just a minute, we'll get into the Giants being connected to not only Max Fried, but also, like I said, Tyler O'Neill. And then also, what the heck is going on with Juan Soto and the Giants' name being thrown around left and right? Are they in? Are they out? What's going on? So we'll get into it momentarily. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So what I would do, of course, is I would look for the most lopsided odds I could find, place my $5 bet, and hope to bring that $150 in bonus bets home. That's available right now at FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, here we go. We're going to get into the rest of what Jeff Passan had to say, linking the Giants, kind of suggesting that there could be a fit with a couple of players more than like saying they're explicitly expressing interest in such a player. But he's right when he links these players. And then what is going on with Juan Soto? We'll give you the latest there. This is obviously the biggest prize in free agency. And we got some conflicting reports, and I'll just kind of break that down. So when I just searched the word Giants in this Jeff Passan article, one of the first names that comes up, he's referencing Willy Adames. He says, though he makes all kinds of sense for the Giants, Adames' willingness to play third base ties him to the Mets and Yankees too. And so, he agrees Adames makes sense for the Giants. Regarding Tyler O'Neill, he says he would fit the Giants and Tigers as well. So Tyler O'Neill, outfielder, right-handed, huge muscles. I think he asked like Hunter Pence for an autograph very politely, as Hunter Pence likes to tell the story. I think that was O'Neill. Has just crushed left-handed pitching. So this year he was second only to Aaron Judge in terms of, I don't know, OPS. I don't know what. No, he doesn't say, slugging percentage, 750 against lefties. That's a small sample of 1 year. I don't know. Tyler O'Neill, solid player. But really, I want to talk about Max Fried, because Max Fried when we look at the starting pitching market, one of the guys I looked to right away was Max Fried. The starting pitching market is probably the strength of the class when it comes to talent and depth. Obviously, Juan Soto in a league of his own on the position player side, but there's quite a few good starting pitchers out there, and Max Fried is certainly one of them. The thing is, he did get a qualifying offer, but Passan says in regards to left-handed pitcher Max Fried, who spent his entire big league career with the Braves. He was traded to the Braves from the Padres. He had another Padres trade where they ended up giving up a player who went on to be a borderline star. Yeah, I mean, this is a good player, and he's actually from California. Well, I felt like he was from Georgia. I guess that's just because he played for the Braves, but from California, so that always works in the Giants' favor. Pitchers, they do have some success bringing here, and I don't know, Buster Posey has a lot of sway in Georgia, and so I don't know, maybe he caught on to some Buster Posey love when he was playing for the Braves for all those years. I have no idea. But the point is, Jeff Passan says regarding Fried, quote, San Francisco and Baltimore will be part of the mix, end quote. And he mentions something about Corbin Burns, another, like I said, Corbin Burns, he says about Burns, he could anchor the Giants' rotation alongside Logan Webb. It's just, speculation, really, not an actual report there. But the Max Fried thing saying the Giants will be in the mix, you just got to watch carefully for what words are used. So in regards to Juan Soto, however, this is where things get weird because it was John Heyman, of course, who notoriously said, Arson Judge appears headed to Giants, and then deleted the tweet 11 minutes later, or whatever it was. So, John Heyman, I apologize, John Heyman, but, I think he's a good dude. I enjoy kind of listening. He does have a lot of inside information, but he's very clearly, a mouthpiece for Scott Boras. Now, I don't think I'm, sending shockwaves through the industry by saying that, but whenever there's a Boras client, John Heyman comes out and reports that the Giants are serious contenders or this and that and the other. And why would you do that? Well, if you're Scott Boras, you're always using the Giants as a team that is interested in your client to kind of drum up, not that Juan Soto needs the drumming up of interest, but just to add another name that is out there, right? And so John Heyman said that he reported on Monday that the Giants were among the teams believed to be meeting with Soto in Southern California this week. And then, however, to be fair, he doesn't say that they are meeting with Soto. It says believed to be meeting with Soto. So he doesn't seem to know. I don't know where exactly he's getting that. But Jason Stark, who's not known as a mouthpiece for Scott Boras, literally just tweeted out, quote, the Giants currently do not have a meeting set up with Juan Soto. Team sources tell The Athletic. So, and that tweet was was that today? I think that tweet was today. No, it was yesterday. Yesterday at 5:50. So Tuesday evening. He writes, Juan Soto news. The Giants currently do not have the news is that the Giants don't have a meeting with Soto. So that, clearly saying, John Heyman, you're wrong. But there's a couple ways to think about this. Number one, and I've seen this has been talked about, written about. I've kind of been out of commission for the past several weeks, as you may have noticed, but I've on the periphery been seeing things said and written that I agree with, which is basically like, if you really aren't going to be if you don't think you're going to be the team that gets them, don't waste your time trying. Because they've been, and a large segment of fans, I think, are nodding your heads yes. Like, you're not getting Juan Soto. Just don't waste your time. Get the other guys. Get that second tier. Soto's in like, it's not even a tier. He's like a god. He doesn't even count. And then there's like other mortal players. So I don't know. The fact that they don't have a meeting set up with him perhaps means they're not even going to go after him at all. And if that's the case, that would suggest to me that they're going to be aggressive early in the market with other players. Now, it could also just be that they haven't set a meeting up yet and that they will. So I have no idea. But, there was this drumming up. I had the article and I lost it, that basically implied, what did it say? That the Giants were like going to be, I think he said, legit contenders for Soto. So it's from November 11th on NBC Sports Bay Area, and the headline of this article is "Report: Giants to meet with Juan Soto, seen as, quote, legit, end quote, contenders." So, yeah, that's a very different report than saying they're not actually meeting with him. So, Giants to meet with Juan Soto, seen as legit contenders. Actually, they're not meeting with him at all. So, I never trust, when it comes to a Scott Boras client, anything Jon Heyman says. He's often, if he says that a player has signed, he's usually right. He just happened to not be right the one time with Arson Judge. But when it comes to just like throwing stuff out there about Scott Boras clients, I generally ignore it coming out of the keypad of Jon Heyman. So so much remains to be seen, so much more to be revealed, and we will get to it. There's a lot more to get to later on this week, and I've also got a ton of mailbag questions that I intend to get to. Thank you so much to everyone who submitted those late last week. So that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor and story throughout the offseason. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a lot. So thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. I can't wait to be with you again later on this week, hopefully tomorrow. Thank you again for listening. You are now Locked On Giants.